Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Coach Fleischer, and for today's virtual lab, we are talking arms. Now, you may recall in the original class presentation, we kind of subdivided arms down into three main groups: biceps on the front of the arm, triceps on the back of the arm, and the forearms, which is from in between the elbow and the wrist. Anatomically, though, as you get deeper into this subject matter, you can go way further. You could have the heads of the bicep, the heads of the tricep, the muscles in the forearm that all work to help articulate and cross the wrist and help articulate the hand and help to articulate the radius and the ulna. But for the sake of this class, we're going to keep it simple and go with biceps, triceps, and forearms just as three main groups, just to kind of give you a concept of how exercise is used for these different muscle groups within the arm category. As we go forward in today's lecture, in this virtual lab, kind of pay attention to a couple things, right? Is the exercise a single joint or multi-joint exercise? Now, when you talk arms in general, you're looking at a single joint type movement pattern with the elbow doing the articulation. Some of them are multi-joint though. And then when you look at this, there also will be, with any exercise, right? You have primary and secondary muscles that are being used. In a bicep curl, it's pretty straightforward. The biceps are doing the work, and there are some muscles on the posterior side of the body that have to fire to keep you from falling over. But when you look at something that's more complex, like a multi-joint exercise, like a lat pull down, you still are bending the elbow and extending the elbow, flexion extension. The bicep is still working, but because it's a multi-joint exercise, you have the back is the primary focus. That's what you're working on, or the back muscles on a lat pull down. The biceps become the secondary muscle group doing work. So it kind of changes, right? In terms of the exercise you're trying to complete, the muscle group you're trying to work, and is it a multi-joint or single joint exercise as to what dictates it, what is the primary muscle group doing the work or the secondary muscle group doing the work. For today, we're going to keep it nice and simple because it's arms, but just realize that the emphasis sometimes changes. And as we go through this, kind of evaluate how you could change the resistance or what variations you could put into a particular exercise as a means to either increase or decrease degrees of difficulty, meaning bring variety into a workout. And then we'll talk later on in this class about passive and active contractions, because when you have antagonistic muscle groups, it's very easy to see where you have a passive shortening cycle because an antagonistic muscle group is elongating eccentrically. Or as you're contracting one group, the other side has to elongate. It just works mechanically in the body like that. And then just a couple like main coaching and cueing points that I'll throw out to you. And hopefully there'll be takeaways for you to use in your practice going forward. So let's take a look at this guy doing some bicep curls. Kind of pay attention again, what joint is moving, how is the resistance is being offered, and where from. That's also important, like what vector the resistance is being offered from. Where is that really coming from, right? And then we'll just talk a little bit how you can do some changes, and then also just a couple cues as well. So, and just so you know, this is me right here. This is Instructor Adrian. And I'm going to let this guy play and let him get a little bicep workout here for a couple reps, and I'll play it, and I'll pause it, and I'll play it and pause it, and offer annotations. Go on, buddy, get some. So you can kind of see as I'm doing my bicep curl, the bar is moving in an arc pattern out away from the body and then tight to the body, meaning out away from my center of gravity, tight to my center of gravity, out, away, and back. And as I'm doing my bicep curl, you will literally see my body kind of pendulum just a little bit. So as I'm curling the bar up and it's furthest away from my center of gravity, I actually rock back just ever so slightly on my heels. Keep in mind when you have somebody in the gym who's throwing a ton of weight around and they overload the bar for curls and they end up turning into a back exercise, that's not what you're after. But to minimize that rocking effect, I could do my bicep curl instead of standing here. Let me pull this back so you can see it. I'll replay this here for you. There's the rock. There's the rock. See that? The shoulder. And I'm rocking back as I'm in 90 degrees of elbow flexion. If we want to minimize that, one way to do that is you just take me over and walk me over and put me against this post and my back against the post, and I do my bicep curl with my back against the post, and I can't rock. All right? I'm gonna let him get a couple more reps here. Heck yeah. So if we move on to the next exercise, tricep pushdown. It's still going to be elbow flexion extension, right? That's still happening, but the resistance is being offered from above. Now it's via this handle, it's a rope actually, through the cable, which goes over a pulley, over and down. Here's the cable here, you can kind of see it. Goes under a pulley, under another pulley, up and over, two more pulleys, and then back down to the weight stack. And this is because this handle, or more accurately, the last pulley articulates. So as a result of that moving up and down, there has to be a multiple pulley configuration to allow that to happen and the weight stack to move. But keep in mind what happens here is you have a weight stack that's being pulled straight down to the floor. That's gravity. You're just redirecting gravity over the pulleys to the cable to the handle to me doing a tricep pushdown, which is still elbow flexion extension. And pay attention on this one when you look at it. Look at how the shoulder and the elbow are lined up with the cable, and how if, for example, we were to move me back a half a foot, that would change that angle between these two, between the shoulder elbow and the cable, and that's going to change how the resistance feels. So we know the joint that's being moved, we know how the resistance is being offered and how it's being redirected, we got that. In this exercise, the resistance is really being offered from the weight stack, but specifically gravity is pulling that weight stack down to the floor, and that's what's offering the resistance. Now, let's go ahead and take a look and let this guy get some triceps here. Go on, big fella. Yeah. And let's go ahead and do this. I'm gonna get this off the screen. I'm gonna back this guy up here so you can see this a little bit more clearly. We get that bottom position. Ooh. We get that bottom position. It's pretty darn close, right? It's pretty darn close to shoulder, elbow, wrist are in a straight line. There's still a bit of an angle between this cable and these 3 points. One way you can line that up a little bit better is have me move just a smidge closer. I happen to do my tricep pushdowns at a slight angle. I like that because it engages my triceps, however slightly, before I do the exercise. Now, if I want to change how that resistance feels, I could scoot myself further back, no doubt. Another way I'll do this with clients, just for grins, and we'll talk a little about overlapping resistance curves, is I will have clients do a tricep pushdown, but I'll also take a band and wrap it around this post here, and I'll have them do a tricep pushdown as they're pushing down against the resistance. In the bottom half of the movement, they have to push back against resistance in terms of the band. Additionally, you'll notice one other thing is going on here. I have a rope in my hands. I'm not pushing down and out, which causes my shoulder to internally rotate. I'm specifically staying hands down and back as best as I can. A longer rope allows for, and this is like a triangle, right? So you have 2 legs of a triangle. My base goes from wrist to wrist or from hand to hand. With a rope that's longer, I would have longer legs on my triangle, and that allows me to push down and back to the side of my thighs as opposed to pushing down and out and rotating my shoulders in, which is very common occurrence in the gym. Go ahead and let this guy get some more reps here. Go on, buddy. Yeah, there you go. And so the exercise itself is still the same movement pattern of elbow flexion, elbow extension. It's just the resistance is causing the triceps to do the work. All right, guys. Good stuff. Okay, so I jumped out to my YouTube channel and I have a couple hundred videos here. This is my arm catalog. And I posted a number of these videos onto Blackboard for your benefit to be able to review them. And this exercise is pretty unique, and I just want to point this out to you so you can see this. This is going to be a bicep curl, but with 2 different modalities of exercise. I have a dumbbell on one side and a handle on the other side. So now think of this in terms of where the resistance is coming from. This wants to be pulled straight down to the floor. This is at an off angle where the resistance has been redirected from the weight stack to the handle, but notice the angle relative to my body is slightly out in front. So you end up with a resistance curve on one side, and I'll talk more about this later on, that's different than the other. So I'm going to let this kind of play through, and I'll pause at different points in the video series in the catalog over here, so it'll autoplay. Just pay attention to the different movement patterns. And so the law of unintended consequences here, right? You have one type of resistance on one side and one type on the other. The midsection has to fire to reconcile that to keep me from falling over. So you have the secondary muscle groups that are working here on the backside of my body, but also in the midsection to help me stabilize. Now this is a cable crossover tricep extension, different than what you saw before with the tricep pushdown. Notice where the shoulder position is. You have the shoulder and the elbow are vertical as opposed to being by the side of my body. So just take me in like a 3D format off the bench and stand me up like I'm doing my tricep pushdown. And I like doing this exercise because it forces my triceps to pre-contract just a little bit because the resistance is slightly behind me. Elbow flexion, elbow extension, elbow flexion, extension. It hits the triceps a little bit differently. This one you've seen, this one you know, and let this guy play. Now tricep extension, this will look a lot like the rope one I just showed you. And notice now the resistance is not coming from a pulley down below at a slight angle, it's coming from the floor. So this bar, if I have my hand straight over my chest, is not offering much resistance. I'm actually slightly leaning back my arms. They're at a slight angle back, and that forces the triceps to pre-contract just a little bit. And I preload my triceps, and then I bend the elbow. Yeah, buddy. There you go. And the tricep extension, you come down to roughly the hairline. That's a little bit higher for some people than others, but you come down to the hairline, not the nose. So by keeping the elbows slightly back, you target right about the hairline, not the nose. See that? Same thing with dumbbells. And that forces one side to work independent of the other. Now this is a dumbbell seated tricep extension. We're now in an upright position, no support for the back at all. Notice that. And so this has to work, and you'll see me actually compensate as the dumbbell tracks down and up. So I have to keep my abs nice and tight to keep them swaying in the back, and it's difficult. I'm actually catching a little bit of arch there. Bicep curl, pretty straightforward, but this time I'm using an easy bar, which is that bent bar as opposed to a straight bar. Just slightly different hand position. Man, my arms are getting tired. There's that straight bar example we saw earlier. Dumbbell now, alternate bicep curl. This is going from a neutral position, if you will, thumb forward position, to a supinated position as if you're holding a bowl of soup in your hand. I'll get you through grad school to mnemonics. And so that's causing me to articulate the forearm a little bit as I'm doing my bicep curl. But also because I'm doing one side, then the other, I'm doing alternate arm, I'm forcing my body, notice a little bit linear, has to fire the midsection to keep me stable. And it's hard not to on that exercise. Yeah. One arm preacher, so I can't really move the upper arm at all, focusing on one arm only. Now we get into hammer curls. Now notice the hand position. I'm staying in that thumb up position. These are named as if you were holding a hammer in your hands. And as I'm curling, whoop, glitchy. I'll play it over if I can get there. Let me pause that. And with those hammer curls, notice this. It now switches more to a forearm exercise. We're hitting the muscles on the top of the forearm. If we went with a palm down position, it'd be different. This would be the only one that's a multi-joint exercise. This is a close grip push-up. When doing a push-up, it's chest, shoulders, and triceps when you're in that normal hand-out position. When we switch the hand position here where it's tighter and the elbows brush past the side of the body, you're still using chest, shoulders, and triceps. It's just mechanically you change the rank order. The triceps come to the party first, then the shoulders, then the chest. All right? So chest, shoulders, triceps for like a bench press or a regular push-up. When you go this narrow grip push-up, it changes the emphasis. We've now asked the triceps to do most of the work. And then we go into a dumbbell bicep curl here coming up next, which is pretty straightforward, and I think you'd be comfortable with that. I can say my arms are getting tired. So the big takeaway with this series of videos is realize the resistance matters, where it comes from matters, how it's being applied matters. Is it a single joint or a multi-joint like we saw with the close grip push-ups? Matters. And you find different ways to introduce in different challenges to your workouts to get a training response, going back to general adaptation syndrome. So with that, guys, have a good one. Go ahead and get the homework done and get the virtual lab done and be on the lookout for more. Thanks a bunch.